Great pass and an even better strike. Well, it is showtime at Disney.
This game could be played on the surface of the sun, and you're going to get something.
When I put on my Talladega Nights helmet, courtesy of Ricky Bobby, we scored.
And Wright Phillips has managed to tuck one in, and he dances a jig of goal-scoring delight.
Oh, 2020, Julian Zakovitz alongside Brian Dunseth. It wouldn't have been El Trafico in 2020 without that Will Ferrell halftime show. Brian Dunseth, so nice to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Same. By the way, I just want to know, is Ricky Bobby's helmet somewhere within reaching distance? I mean, Will Ferrell's hair was one thing. His kids in the background eating corn were another. But then you rock the helmet throughout the course of the entire interview, and he called it. He puts on his helmet. He gets goals.
I was really rooting for the elf hat, but if it gave us a 6-2 LAFC result, I'll take it. That had to have gone down in history. I think John Champion asked Taylor Twellman during that, most interesting halftime show we've had yet in your career, and I think Twellman said yes. I know, I was just sitting there.
Yeah.
I think I texted you like, what is going on? The bad news is, guys, we do not have Will Ferrell on this show, but the good news is we are going to give you your first look at the nominees for AT&T Goal of the Week. We're going to look ahead to tonight's action. Now with 23 games in the books of 51 in this MLS Is Back tournament, we're going to play a little game of Will It Continue? So that in just a bit, but for right now, let's get right into those epic El Trafico highlights. First off, no Chicharito in what would have been his first El Trafico, meeting number 7, Dunny.
Yeah, but what a start it is for the LA Galaxy, and give them credit. There was a spirit to the start for Guillermo Barroscalotto's side, and Sebastian Lletget gets to the end line, and poor Latif Blessing, wrong place, wrong time. He tries to take away the cutback. It ends up as the own goal and gives LA Galaxy the surprising 1-0 lead. Now, with the scoreline level, Carlos Pavon steps up, and Cisniega saved the first one, but he was judged to be off his line, and the Argentine makes no mistake about it. So the 32nd minute, LA Galaxy find themselves up 2-1. But this is where LAFC can break your heart, because it's chances, and more chances generated. BWP, big save, and ultimately spill and recovery for Rossi. And there we go. Here's the start. And the start is, again, when you're able to sign a guy like Bradley Wright Phillips, it's that little bit of space, that little bit of ingenuity, that little bit of experience, and a fantastic goal. Giancarlo Gonzalez does all he can, but that little bit of a movement to his left opens up his legs and right through. Now, 4 versus 3. It's the 75th minute, Jillian. 4 versus 3. The scoreline is 3-2, and you are just cut apart in a classic transition attack from LAFC. Rossi gets another one. Great ball from Rodriguez. And LA Galaxy backline is questioned once again. Then it turns into a blowout. And this is a psychological blowout. And we'll talk about Schelotto. We'll talk about who he has and who he does not have. But we'll also talk about the substitution pattern, because this team, the LA Galaxy, remember El Clasico, when they used to just stomp Chivas USA? They are starting to become the Chivas USA of Los Angeles.
Oh, man, he said it. All right, well, someone else who has had some things to say after the game is manager Bob Bradley.
A very hard first half. Galaxy, strong game plan, really tried to, in a derby, be intense, clog the middle. It took us a long time to find our ways, to find a way to control the game, but still we fought through it and then created some good chances and scored some great goals.
Those great goals led to this. The series in El Trafico, Dunny, is now even. You look all the way back to that epic first game with Zlatan Ibrahimovic when the LA Galaxy won it 4-3, to last night's action, to now LAFC kind of dominating things with a 6-2 win, the largest margin of error we have seen yet in this classic. And here's how things shake out. Portland on top with 6 points, LAFC right behind them with 4 points. Portland, the first team, Dunny, in the Western Conference to punch their ticket to the knockout stage. And then you look at goal differential, which is going to prove to be huge between LAFC or Houston.
Yeah, and we'll take a look at the highlights from Houston, but with no Albert Elise, this is going to be quite the test between Houston and the LA Galaxy. And we knew at some point goal differential would be the conversation that comes into play, and this is why LAFC becomes kind of the major talking point throughout the course of this tournament, is because of the number of chances generated. And again, you look at these past two matchups, whether it was in the playoffs or it was last night. I know there's a bigger picture here, right? I mean, if you're Dennis DeClosa, if you're Guillermo Schelotto, and you're going to the LA Galaxy season, you're thinking Jonah Dos Santos, you're thinking Chicharito, and at the time, Alexander Katai. You throw those three alongside Pavone, and all of a sudden you're saying, man, our big four on this team can compete with anybody, absolutely anybody. But when you take a couple of players out, next thing you know, the question marks that have been kind of this staggering conversation about the LA Galaxy. And I was here yesterday saying the same thing. If you're going to buy or you're going to sell LA Galaxy defensively. This team is so soft. Psychologically, they just get pulled all over the place. And the moment that there's a breakdown, here's my concern for Schelotto. The moment that there's a breakdown, Jillian, there's kind of this, the individual and collective, like, or there's like a... It's almost as if the guys know who they can or cannot trust. And it's still an LA Galaxy side that will be competitive in the West, but if they don't get that first goal, this is my fear for the team. That psychologically, they just start to lower the level a little bit. That means, like, who's going to make the first mistake? That's kind of him. I can't trust him. I can't trust that guy. And I've been on those type of teams, and it is one of the most difficult things to overcome throughout the course of a season.
Let's talk LAFC. Now, they come here to Orlando, no Carlos Vela, and they have put up 9 goals in their last 2 games. How far ahead is LAFC in the battle for El Tráfico ahead of the LA Galaxy?
Light years. Make no mistake about it. Light years. And I'm not, this isn't a malicious remark. But again, you remember what El Clasico was with Chivas USA and the LA Galaxy. When Bob Bradley was at Chivas USA, all of a sudden it became respectable. It became competitive. And when he left, the kind of the righteousness of the LA title went back in favor of the Galaxy. There was no doubt about it. They were the dominant team. It's quite the opposite now. And I look at the bench. I look when you can bring in Janela, when you can bring in Cifuentes, when you can bring in El Munir. And on the flip side, Schelotto brings in Gordon Wild for Cuello. When he's bringing Efrain Alvarez and Sasha Kleshtin in for the final 6 minutes of a match. That tells me the bench is extremely weak. And give full credit to John Thorrington, to Bob Bradley, and for everyone behind the scenes at LAFC, because there's still issues. And the big issue is, we think, in transition defending, there's some question marks. Well, even in the offseason, you take a Walker Zimmerman and you flip him for monopoly money. And that monopoly money is then turned into going to the international market and bring players in at an extremely young age that you could potentially sell in the future and make even more monopoly on. So you're looking at real-time results versus kind of future assets that you can make money on. Business-wise, sport-wise, LAFC is absolutely knocking it out of the park right now.
So let me raise it a step further. LAFC, they were fun to watch. 6 goals. They put on a show. It was a clinic. I mean, what Rossi did was just incredible. You always think back to the epic Zlatan Ibrahimovic, first game, first El Tráfico, a hat trick. And then Rossi kind of raises that a little bit last night. How far ahead is LAFC in this league? Who are some of the teams in MLS that you feel like can compete with LAFC based on what we saw last night?
Yeah, I think there's an eyeball test, and obviously with a healthy Joseph Martinez, you have to, I think, first mention what Atlanta United can do. I think every team is trying to create that trifecta. They're trying to create that incredible trifecta up top. And whether you're looking at Seattle and you're looking at Portland, whether you're looking at Toronto or you're trying to see, I don't know, what maybe an Orlando City's trying to do, they all kind of have their positives and negatives. But there's just something about, and I give full credit to Bob Bradley, because, you know, when you think about the trajectory of his career, the success that he's had at both the domestic and the international level, there's always been a substance. There's always been an identity. And whether you respected it or you hated it, you always could see kind of the DNA of a Bob Bradley team. What's impressive to me is that when you lose the best player, the MVP of Major League Soccer, and Carlitos Vela, and you throw in an Adama Diamande or you throw in a Bradley Wright Phillips, there's just something special about what they're building that people want to be a part of that, even if they're not going to play significant minutes, even if it doesn't mean they're an automatic starter. And I think that's why you throw Rodriguez on one side, you throw Rossi on the other side. There's just that identity. There's flex physically, and there's just this stylistic feel that you're seeing. And again, it's just wave after wave after wave after wave. And that's why, Bob's right. Give LA Galaxy credit for the fight and the grit and the determination you saw for the first 45 minutes. But that killer goal right before the halftime whistle takes all of the momentum out of their sails. And what I would say is maybe the biggest compliment I could give LAFC is now they're almost winning games before the opening whistle. There's a psychological element that's coming into play because LAFC is so dangerous offensively, and they've got so many pieces of the puzzle that even if they do give up a goal, there's almost this inevitable comeback that's on the cards because they're going to create so many chances.
Diego Rossi now with those 4 goals last night, back-to-back games with goals for him, puts him up with 5 with the other hat-trick king, Ayo Akinola. So let me ask you this, Dunny. Diego Rossi, do you see 2020 as becoming his breakout season?
I think it would be another step forward to the conversation that we're having with Rossi being kind of amongst the elite, if not the elite conversation. It's inevitable at some point that his career is going to take him into a different trajectory. The question is, what do the numbers look like? And as Taylor and John Champion were talking last night, in the middle of this coronavirus pandemic, financially, things are going to look a little bit different. Does that benefit or does that hinder what LAFC is trying to do in the short term? The longer that you can keep Rossi on the field, you're going to be a better team. You're going to be a better organization. But the moment that you sell him, it's going to continue to kind of build into this narrative of what LAFC is trying to do both on the field, off the field, with the stadium, with the fan base, and ultimately the business plan as they solidify themselves absolutely among the elite in Major League Soccer. No questions about it.
On the other side, you have Chicharito. Everyone had this game circled on their calendar. Okay, El Trafico, will this be the game where we see the Chicharito? And now here he is with an injury that could have him out for the rest of the tournament. Would he have made the difference last night?
He would have made a difference. I don't think he would have made the difference because, again, I think no matter what the LA Galaxy were trying to do last night, inevitably, LAFC is just a stronger team. It's a stronger starting 11. It's a stronger bench. Now, again, when you head in the season and you're thinking Jonah Dos Santos, Alexander Katai, and Chicharito with Pavone, that's a different conversation than the lineup that we saw last night. Chicharito makes a difference. He's not the same, and I know we keep referencing Zlatan because it was a Zlatan thing. It was a Vela thing. It was an El Trafico thing. It's a one-way Trafico thing, and that one-way traffic is in favor of LAFC. That's it.
I knew that was
sorry, I'm
going
to see myself out. My dad jokes. I was using them last night. Chicharito is an excellent player. He's an elite player, but the problem is he relies on service, and Chicharito cannot. Oh, well, there's going to be very few times in his time at LA Galaxy where he's single-handedly going to win the game for the Galaxy, and that was going to be difficult enough without facing LAFC.
Certainly a disappointment to not see Chicharito for the immediate future. All right, let's discuss this game, shall we? Before El Trafico, we had Portland taking on Houston, old teammates Tab Ramos and Gio Savarese. Tab Ramos still looking for his first win as manager of the Dynamo.
Jeremy Ebobisse, he's isolated 1v1. Look at this angle. When you're a defender, when you're a goalkeeper, you say, okay, if you beat me at this angle, I'm going to tip my hat. You got to tip your cap to Ebobisse because that's a fantastic goal. And then Manotas in behind. Steve Clark comes up with a huge save. These are in the dying moments before the halftime whistle. So this was a huge step in the right direction for Portland. And then where in the world is the midfield for Houston? With Vera and with Boniek Garcia, nobody back presses, nobody backtracks. Then you've got Struna protecting the inside from the penalty area to the 6. He's dragged out. He's caught in no man's land. And Diego Valeri gets the second goal of the match. Now, this is just wild to me. Albert Elise, great goal, right? 86th minute, he pulls one back, makes it 2-1. Life comes fast, Jillian. life comes really fast, because right after that goal, he'd picked up a yellow card for a tackle on Villafana. And I know you want to say this is soft. Watch his eyes. He's not looking at the ball. He's putting his hand up. He's looking for contact. And the moment, Jillian, that your hand goes into the face of an opponent and you're already sitting on a yellow, you've given Ismail Elfath every reason to show you second. So whether, quote unquote, he meant to or he didn't, know how to use your body. And by the way, eyes, always the eyeballs. Watch the eyeballs. That indicates if the player is playing the ball or the man. 3 minutes, a goal, a yellow card, and a red card. Unfortunately, the trifecta, the David Luiz trifecta for Albert Elise.
The Houston Dynamo will now be without Elise for their next match. The Portland Timbers win this one 2-1, and with that, they become the first team in the Western Conference to secure their spot in the knockout stage, along with, of course, the Columbus Crew, Philly, and Orlando from the Eastern Conference. Jeremy Ebobisse last night, we saw him in his natural position at the striker position and thriving. Let's take a listen to what Gio Savarese saw from his young striker.
The players have to earn their spot. Nothing's going to be given to anybody. And he earned it. He has worked hard. He has shown, development every single year. In 2018, when he came in against Colorado, he showed, that he wanted to be important in that year. I think in the final, we spoke, and, there were things that maybe he could have shown a little bit more, so he showed still that he needed to mature. Last year, a tremendous season, the player that played basically every single game. And this year he started, I think, with an even higher level. So the competition on top is difficult for me, because I think everybody's fighting to try to play. And Jebo has deserved it. And another good goal today that was very important for us.
Speaking to him a little bit this year, he is so hungry to become a major goal scorer, and he's so focused on it. I was so impressed when I talked to him. We rewatched the Atlanta United 2018 MLS Cup game together in one of those remix classics, and he was beside himself. And I was thinking to myself, well, wait, at the time you were 20 years old, you just made it to an MLS Cup. Wasn't that enough? And he was beside himself, reliving every missed opportunity. So that fact that he is now being given the nod by Gio, his manager showing confidence in him, he is really making the most of the opportunities that are given to him. Goals now in back-to-back games for Jeremy Ebobisse. Do you think that this continues with him, Dunny?
I do. First off, his work off the field is just as important than his work on the field, and how highly intelligent and mature that Ebobisse is showing both on and off the field. There's a couple things at play. Yeah, I mean, you think about last season with Brian Fernandez coming in and the debacle that ended up happening with Fernandez on the field, off the field, all of those issues. Ebobisse just wants to play. And yeah, he's a point striker, but he can also play wide. He has this kind of range that very few strikers have at his age. Now, the biggest challenge for Jeremy Ebobisse is the same challenge that happens to every young attacking American player in the system. From the ages from 19 to 23, 24, you are potential. But potential doesn't get you on the field. It is opportunity, and it's everyday work. And Gio was talking about, he's not going to be handed anything. So his work behind the scenes, personally, the strength, the conditioning, all of the finishing drills, then on the field at training every single day, treating it like a World Cup, and then ultimately taking advantage of whether it's coming off the bench and being an impact player or getting the start, and even sometimes playing in positions where it's not necessarily your best position. What I've enjoyed with Ebobisse is that he, as you said, he puts his head down. He understands the frustration of who he is and how he wants to play his game and how he needs to get better. And a fantastic goal, Jillian, a fantastic goal. And I'll tell you what, it's a pause. It becomes a pause for the future for Gavin Wilkinson and Portland Timbers, thinking about, do we really need to go out and get an international striker that is going to cost us $10 million, that's going to guarantee us a certain amount of goals, when we can rely on Ebobisse? And that right there is going to be the biggest vote of confidence for this young man's career going forward.
Jeremy Ebobisse, 23 years old. And then on the other side of the coin, you have the veteran, Diego Valeri, the 2017 MVP. Dunny, he is one goal away from the 80-80 club. And he's joining some pretty impressive names up there.
Yeah, Landon Donovan, Jaime Moreno, some of the best. I know Preki was stuck on like 17 and 120 assists or something, and he's out there saying, "Buddy, come on, give me one more." Valeri, for me, he's been nothing short of extraordinary. And like you, Jillian, I've had opportunities to kind of sit down with him behind the scenes, do stuff with him on camera, and he is an incredible, incredible human being. So much so that I would say that everybody should judge the character on the field versus the personality off the field when you're talking about the importance of signing the correct designated player, because he checks all those boxes, whether it's what he's doing with the Timbers or what he and his family and his daughter are doing with the Portland Thorns and the NWSL. All of that is important. At the end of the day, there was a lot of drama following the end of last season because he just wanted to feel his worth. He wanted to know that he had a future with the club. And I think cooler heads prevailed. And as we're seeing, you add Yimi Chari on one side, you've got Sebastian Blanco on the other, you've got Ebobisse scoring goals, you've got Diego ripping people's heads off behind you like an angry little chihuahua. It's fantastic. It's the perfect build of a squad from defensive midfielders going forward. And that's why I think it's a stroke of genius. And Valeri is absolutely flying right now to start the 2020 season.
And as you mentioned, Dunny, a guy like Valeri, you go to any community event, it's not often that you always find a league MVP roaming around. They'll throw the teams will throw the rookies in there like, all right, go to this, go to that.
Who's
see
this guy?
Diego Valeri at everything. So aside from what he does on the field, Diego Valeri is such an important piece of what the Portland Timbers are. I'm loving seeing what he's producing on the field. Not surprised. And a lot of that Diego Valeri service has them atop of Group F again, locking up a spot in the knockout stage. All right, looking ahead now, or let's look back at this past week. I wasn't surprised, and you don't want to get ahead of yourself because so much can happen. But the guys have bought in to what MLS is doing with this MLS Is Back tournament. And now we are at, Dunny, the third consecutive round of testing with 0 positive cases. Amazing what some masks and some social distancing can accomplish. Atlanta United, we've kind of known it behind the scenes. We've heard whispers of it. They finally signed the Paraguayan Eric Lopez. He will play with Atlanta United 2 for the time being. 3 games also added to the ESPN schedule. And now a quick round of will it continue? I think one of the storylines coming into this MLS Is Back tournament was, okay, will we finally see Orlando City become something? They're the hosts. And we all had our apprehensions of, or will they let us down? We talked about LAFC being fun to watch. Orlando has been a team, Atlanta United fans would even admit it, that has been fun to watch. Are you surprised?
Did you just say Atlanta United fans would admit something that's going well in Orlando?
They may have been in a lower, more vulnerable place when they said that.
I understand. I've seen those rivalries calling games. It's wild. Listen, Chris Muller's flying absolutely. He's killing it right now. On top of that, Nani being involved is just a complete difference maker. We knew his experience and see what he had done last year. Having a healthy Dom Dwyer, the goal scorer, Dom Dwyer, the antagonistic presence, Dom Dwyer, quote unquote, the good guy versus the bad guy. I'm here for all of it. We need more personality in this league. But I think what it really comes down to, Oscar Pareja. Now, I played with Oscar Pareja in New England and in Dallas. He is, if you ever want to go to battle, if you ever want to find yourself in a street fight with someone to your side, it's Oscar Pareja, because this guy will give you everything. Now, his intelligence as a manager matches what he did on the field. And I got to be honest, I'm not surprised to see kind of the transition of success that he's had in Orlando.
Sporting Kansas City. Last year, they bled goals, and we were all like, there's no way Peter Vermees is going to let that happen again this year. Sporting Kansas City equals defensively sound, always under Peter Vermees, but not so in this tournament. They've given up 4 goals in 2 games. Does Peter put a stop to that going forward?
He has to. And unfortunately, I keep kind of joking around about a dark passenger, and it's the fact that they can't figure out what to do with the center back position. Now on center back number 3 since the departure of Iko Para to Minnesota United, who wins the Defender of the Year last season. Punches. The question is, will Punches have the the partnership with Matt Beasler that he needs to have to make sure that this team is defensively stout, as always, in front of Tim Melia. Ilya and Roger in front protecting Zeus on one side. The question is the balance, and it's always going to be the balance, because much like we talk about Bob Bradley and LAFC, there's always been an identity. There's been a style identity with Sporting Kansas City. So, yes, defensively, that's what everybody's going to talk. Polito, goals, it's all there. Kyrie coming back, huge addition to the squad. But we're going to be talking about the center backs as long as Sporting Kansas City keeps leaking some of the softer goals that we've seen.
And someone we saw putting up a ton of goals, a hat trick the other night, was TFC's darling Ayo Akinola. This guy, 1 or 2 goals in, you're thinking to yourself, wait a second. This guy's a lot of fun, also a lot of fun to watch. And again, a youngster gets an opportunity and he rises to it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And from a national team perspective, you've seen as a wide player, Greg Vanny and company see him as a point striker.
Greg Berhalter was watching.
And on top of that, this is going to put pressure on Josie, a good type of pressure, because I think anytime an established veteran, who Ayo has said, taken me under my wing and literally showed me what I need to do, be a better player both on and off the field. For Ayo, if he continues this development, that's going to create some solutions, but also some problems for Greg Vanny because of the amount of goals that he's scoring, and maybe take some pressure off of Josie Altidore, who's been dealing with some injuries and some fitness issues.
Really nice to see Josie Altidore send out a congratulatory tweet, not only to his team, but to Ayo after that performance. New York City FC. Holy smokes. 2 games in, 1 goal, 0 wins. Can they turn it around?
You know, I put NYCFC and Colorado in kind of a similar boat, albeit different. For NYCFC, it was the goals that they were scoring in CONCACAF Champions League, which led us all to believe that they would just pick up where they left off. Whether you're talking about Aber, you're talking about Castellanos, you're talking about Medina. There's difference makers in this team, but for one reason or another, they just look a little bit off. And just that little bit off in a tournament format, in a group stage where points are available and on the line are of utmost importance, that's a concern. Now, there's always going to be some wiggle room with the third-place finish, but I just think with the lack of scoring opportunities, there's issues. For Colorado, on the flip side, I think we were a bit shocked because this was kind of the cool underground pick for who's going to be a favorite in this tournament because of the way Robin Fraser came in kind of near the end of the season and got this team so close to a Western Conference playoff spot. And the fact that they win the first 2 games of the regular season leads us to believe that, hey, Colorado is the team you have to keep an eye on. But what we've seen is a team that didn't play well in their first game against Real Salt Lake and then lost all of their discipline the other night against Sporting Kansas City. And, you know, Danny Wilson, dog-so situation, I'm fine with it. As a defender, you let him get goal side, you're in trouble. Jack Price, if you're a leader with that much experience and you want to start chirping, whatever the magic button was, you pressed it with David Gantar, and you found yourself down 2 men. So not only are you punishing yourself right now, you're punishing yourself for the future. And Robin Fraser is going to be extremely frustrated on multiple levels, and they're going to looking for a response in their third and final game in this match.
Colorado came into the season flying, starting off with all 6 points, and now have yet to win in the MLS Is Back tournament. 2 other teams that have yet to win in the MLS Is Back tournament is Atlanta and Seattle. Atlanta now shut out through the entire tournament. Seattle squeaked in a couple goals. Have their expectations lowered for both sides?
Well, let's start with Atlanta. You know, to your point the other day, this is a team that has a bunch of new faces. So when you have new faces, it's going to take some time to gel. Positions are going to be a little bit different. Frank de Boer, as we saw last year, is going to want to set his defensive foundation first before really allowing the attack to go forward. And we saw that until probably about the halfway mark last season. This year's a little bit different, right? The names, the faces, the experience, the vocal presence, the leadership inside and outside, inside the locker room and on the field, everything feels just a little bit different. Then you throw No Joseph Martinez into the conversation, and then you're like, oh boy, okay, we've got a lot of things to overcome. I think Atlanta United looks at this tournament while still wanting to win it. They're going to look at this as a building block to get themselves on track to finish the 2020 campaign. For Seattle, on the other hand, I'm not concerned. Joao Pedro injured. Then Andrade picks up a hammy injury. This is still a team that, yes, from Chad Marshall to Kim Key, he is still trying to figure out the center back partnership and what it looks like with Arriaga and Andrade going forward. I think Shane O'Neill will probably feature here in the next match. But for Schmetz, I'm really not worried. I think this is a team, much like we're always talking about Toronto. It's not about form, it's about experience. I think Brian Schmetzer in Seattle have earned that ability to say, hold on a second, have faith in the process. We're going to show up when it matters.
If we've learned anything about Seattle, it's never, ever count them out. And they are the
100%.
defending champs after all. Okay, let's take a look at our AT&T Goal of the Week nominees. There's 5 of them. We saw some epic, beautiful strikes this week. And here's the first one from NYFC's Medina.
Yeah, this is my favorite because it's the technical. It's off the chest, and he takes it off the half bounce, and then he picks up the far post side net. So extremely difficult. But by the way, there's something special about these lefties. It just looks better. It feels better. It is better. It's a fantastic goal from Medina.
I think that might be mine. And then at number 2, we have Philadelphia's Shabelko. This one, look at that pace, just gets in there and finds the post.
Frankie Amaya, a guy who we had on the show yesterday, second-year player, number 1 draft pick. What a great goal this is. Unfortunately, the polar bear at full stretch can't get a touch of it. But Frankie Amaya, as he turns, opens up, this is a huge goal, especially taking advantage of a team down to 10 men because of that early red card in the match for Atlanta United.
Yeah, it gets Brad Gazan off his line there. Then moving to last night's action, LAFC's Mohamed Al-Munir.
Lawn dart. I mean, the fact that Bingham doesn't even try should tell you the power and the pace and the accuracy of that goal. By the way, I hated being this defender, Akinola.
Yeah, okay.
Akinola, he just said, weight room is what he said. He said, weight room, and then he scooped the goal. When you're a defender and you're running, and all of a sudden you get shouldered off the ball like that, and you know what's happening, it's like it's a horror movie. It's Jason Voorhees is like coming at you. And what a great goal that is from Ayo Akinola as he just kind of slows himself down. And that right there is a brief glimpse into how important it is to be a real goal scorer. When you get in the box, slow down. And that deft little scoop wasn't Higuain type of scoop, but it was still a great scoop nonetheless.
One of 3 scoops on the night for Ayo Akinola. Dunny, mine, I said it off the top. It was that Medina goal against Orlando. Just kind of staying so calm, cool, and collected in the box. Left foot. Who's your AT&T Goal of the Week?
Technically, it's that goal, but in terms of the run of buildup, the dummy from Montero, which then goes to Brendan Aronson, that ends up being another dummy from Montero, and then Shabilko with a little classy from the right foot to the left foot, all the way around the goalkeeper. Yeah, I think I got to go to the Philadelphia Union on this one.
Okay, well, you ultimately at home will be the ones to make the decision. Just head over to MLSsoccer.com and vote for the AT&T Goal of the Week. You've got 24 hours to do so. Voting closes Monday at noon Eastern Time. All right, well, that's everything that's happened this week and last night, but there is lots of action tonight. Kicking things off is the San Jose Quakes taking on the Chicago Fire. And after that, we've got Seattle taking on Vancouver. So 2 good games tonight on FS1. And here's how Group B is looking as we have Group B on full display tonight. San Jose ahead of the pack with 4 points. Chicago at 3. Seattle 1 point they got from that draw. And Vancouver still looking for their way. Off the top, Dunny, San Jose versus Chicago. San Jose kind of doing a little bit of what they did last year of just pulling these wins out of who knows where, total team effort. Stunning result. San Jose gets the comeback victory. Chicago beating Seattle. Who can build off their result the most? Who do you think has the most momentum going into tonight?
I would have to say it's San Jose, just based on the come from behind and how improbable that come from behind was, even though there was like 87 minutes of added extra time after the final whistle. But there's a spirit, there's a unity. If you're talking to Tommy Thompson, you're talking to Wando, you're talking to Shea Salinas, everybody is singing the praises of Matias Almeida. But Matias Almeida was a bit naive last year, thinking that he could play this style with these particular players throughout the course of the season. And as we saw, the wheels absolutely fell off and were destroyed in the build-up to a Western Conference playoff spot. So, It'll be interesting to see what Matias Almeida has learned about managing his players throughout the course of the season, because they play such a distinct and specific style where it's asking a lot from a physical perspective from his players. Now, Chicago, on the other hand, Rafael Vicky, it's a building process, and Beric up top and everything that they're trying to do, it'll be interesting to see where they fall in line in terms of their identity, their style, their substance, their formation, because I think it's all in flux for the Chicago Fire, but it's going to be one heck of a game.
Yeah, well, and the other game we have coming up is Seattle taking on Vancouver. Seattle, I mean, just one losing streak over their last 49 games. Meanwhile, you look at that game, San Jose is flying, and then on the other side of the coin, how can Vancouver's spirits not be broken after throwing away a lead like that, a chance to really get ahead in their group? Are their spirits broken after that loss, and can they recover against a team like Seattle tonight?
Marc Dos Santos will do everything in his power to have this team prepared, but inevitably when there's no Lucas Cavallini for $9 million coming in from Puebla, when there's no Freddie Montero and there's no Toussaint Ricketts, I mean, Yordi Reyna and company are doing their best, but I just think there's not a lot of hope. Now, there'll be a spirit. It's a Cascadia Cup type of rivalry. There's a feel and an emotion to it. They're representing club and city. But for Seattle, I think this is the perfect tonic for the disappointment of coming off a result that didn't go in their favor, facing a Vancouver side that is really going to struggle, missing their 3 top attacking players.
Yeah, 3 out of the 4 that did not make the trip with the Vancouver Whitecaps to Orlando. So don't forget, tonight you've got these 2 matches coming up. Chicago, CJ Sapong taking on the San Jose Quakes. And, as Dunny mentioned, the battle for Cascadia, Seattle taking on Vancouver. All that action tonight on FS1. Don't miss it, 8 o'clock and 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, that does it for today. Happy Sunday, everybody. Go have yourselves a great day. You will be back here same time tomorrow. You'll be joined by Susanna Collins and Kaylin Carr. This is MLS Today, presented by AT&T. Thanks so much for joining us. Jillian Sakovitz alongside Brian Dunseth.